Hey, happy Supersoul Monday. Happy Supersoul Boulder. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm your host, Dr. Lara Johnson, and I want to invite you to another episode of Supersoul Boulder. Happy Monday. So, like I said, I'm your host, Dr. Lara Johnson from Yellow Brick Physical Therapy in Boulder, Colorado, and tonight's topic is about pacing ourselves because we are just past that start of the new year. I know so much has happened in the last week since I've seen you all. So we're going to acknowledge that and set that aside for the moment because this show, hi Carlos, great to see you. This show is all about you, all about how are you handling your life? How are you handling yourself? How are you taking care of yourself? Again, we talk about all things mind, body, and heart, health, and wellness, and we want to take care of all of those areas in ourselves so that we can show up in the world in our best way. And sometimes that does mean, walking through some difficult things because that is life, right? So great to see you. So because it's the start of, last week we talked about starting because it's the start of the year. It got me thinking about, when we start things, it's really exciting. And to follow that, when it's that excitement, we might have, I'm not one for resolutions, but I think a lot of us feel like there's a reset and feel like the start of the year is a nice place to feel like you're starting fresh or like, reflecting on the past, letting go and looking ahead towards what this year may bring. And as we do that, it is exciting and we have a momentum and that's great. But sometimes, the going gets tough and what do we do at those places? And as a runner, I can't help but think about running this way. And it's like after the start of the race, so we get to the starting line, everything's really hyped. There's a lot of energy, whether you're a runner or not, that whatever you relate to with this, take what works for you. And so we get to the starting line, there's a lot of intensity, there's a lot of energy. Carlos, you know this, you see it all the time. And there's a lot of hype, nervousness, all this stuff. And that's great, and we need that energy. And then we get started, gun goes off, we get started, just like the start of this year, right? So momentum, we have ideas of what we'd like to do, what we'd like to, focus on, and then we get into it, and that's where the hard part starts. It's like the mile in to a 5K, or maybe it's mile 5 in a marathon, or maybe for you ultras out there, maybe it's a little farther along, but there's that hard place, right? And if we've gone out too fast, if we have too high of expectations on ourselves, or too low for that matter, we may not keep going the way we want. So it's really not about where we're headed, right? It's about how we're heading there. And you want to be able to stay in the game, you want to be able to stay in the race at your best throughout the whole thing, to have that sustained effort, that sustained ability, that endurance we've talked about before. And so the beginning of the year is a little bit like that, don't you think? We don't want to start off we want the energy and momentum, and we want to have that hype and excitement and energy and take that with us, but hone that momentum, hone that energy into a sustainable place for you to be. A sustainable way for you to continue and to continue and continue rather than, this is why I'm not a huge fan of resolutions and why people fall off of them. Okay, I'm going to do this and I have this set in mind and I'm going to, maybe not this year, but a lot of go to the gym and get started on that or whatever that case may be, new habits we want to form. And then as we get into it, I'm feeling it myself. I started a new habit this week, a weekend. I'm kind of feeling, that commitment is there and just wanting to keep that going. So we want to pace ourselves. We want to, hi Jill, we want to pace ourselves. We want to hone that energy, hone that excitement. Hopefully you felt some of that at the start of the year, even whether it's the freshness or the unknown of what's to come, allowing yourself to have that momentum and not feel or expect like that momentum should or could be there the whole time, right? We might be able to bring it back, remember it, that's helpful, but also know that there's gonna come that time where it feels like, maybe the doldrums are setting in, or you've gotta shift that mindset somehow for yourself, or you've got to find ways to. I'll tell you this week I started this kind of journaling exercise every morning, early in the morning, and it does feel a little daunting, but the funny part for me is that stickers help. I went and got some stickers from the dollar store and tracking my progress is actually really helpful, and it feels kind of fun and exciting. So if nothing else, you guys, I highly recommend stickers. I don't know when I last used stickers for myself. I wish I lived in that creative world a little more, where I had for the last lot of years with all my graduate schooling. There weren't a lot of stickers going on, but they're really helpful. So I highly recommend doing what you need to do to track those things, but to pace yourself. Part of that, I see that as the pacing. It's like, okay, I'm setting myself in for that pace, right? That keeping that momentum. And maybe it's a matter of slowing down a little more than you think. For those of us who are highly motivated, not everyone is, but those of us who are highly motivated, it might help to slow down just a little bit more than you think, or take on one less thing than you want to take on. And for those people who need a little motivation, who need to change that inertia and overcome maybe what feels like stagnancy, then it might be something else. Maybe it is movement, or getting yourself moving more, getting more energy going through your body. All of that can help. So I see this happen a lot when it comes to patients too. So when I start someone off, like, okay, we found, I always go through this process, which is finding the root cause. Like I just had a patient last week. It was really fun because he came in for a heel problem on the back of his heel. It's really common presentation for Achilles problems or plantar fasciitis. And he's a triathlete. He does Ironmans and things. He's in his 40s. And anyway, it was really fun because, I was back up. Look, it's not just about the heel. I just know if it's an overuse problem, it's usually coming from some pattern. So we want to look back up the chain to see, where's that pattern coming from, and why are you landing in such a way that's creating more stress and pressure on the foot and the heel and the Achilles and the plantar fascia, all that stuff. Because it doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It's not just like the tissue itself is a problem. It's usually a matter of extra pressure and tension happening on that place, which comes from patterning. So if one place is restricted, it's pulling the other. We want to release that area that's restricted and pulling on the other. And I digress, but just sharing that story makes me think of even my own process of, we don't want to jump right in at where it's painful. We want to come back out to that process and the pacing of ourselves with it. But I bring that up because as he gets started, he's kind of excited and wowed. Oh, wow, this is really different from what I expected. We want to enter into those habits that I'm giving him in such a way that it's sustainable. And I'm asking a lot so that we can change these patterns so he can do the race he wants to do in May. And in order to do that, we've got to, get all systems on board and make it workable, make it a path and a way that's going to be sustainable, right? Because we want sustained health. So that's one example. The healing process is an example I get to see all the time of having sustained health and creating sustained patterns, sustained habits that you can continue and keep with as you go along. But once you learn those habits and patterns, once you stick with them long enough, it becomes easier and easier and easier, right? It's like anything we do, any habit we do where we strengthen a muscle or we meditate and strengthen the muscle in the brain, the muscle in the brain that allows you to be still and connected and calm. Or as you get out, for example, to run more, you will find that gets easier and easier too. Same thing with habits and new habits and patterns that we find in our bodies. It is a matter of sticking with those things, pacing yourself, knowing that that excitement might not always be there, but that's okay. It's really just sticking with those habits every day that will sustain you long term. And so an example I was thinking of when thinking about this topic is how I grew up as an 800-meter runner. And so I was doing 800 and cross country, which is 5Ks, for a very long time. And that 800 runner in me, that half miler in me, really loved to start out fast. I actually, would even in college, I struggled with going out hard and then finding myself really faltering in the second half of the race. And that was discouraging. So mentally it gets discouraging. And you feel like you're falling behind and everyone's starting to pass you. And that really weighs on your mentality. Whether or not you're physically able to hang in there, the mentality and that, feeling down, maybe down on yourself, or, I should be doing better, or, that fear and discouragement can come in. So we want to pace ourselves at the start so we can get to the end of the year feeling, or the end of the month, right? The end of the week, whatever it is, the end of the day, feeling like we've still got some energy, right? And so and that, I guess there's a generality to that. And there's also specifics. Any training you're doing, any path you're on, any endeavor you're working toward where you're wanting to grow and change, it's important to think about how you're pacing yourself. So I used to start off too hard and be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have people pass me. And I really found that it was important to me to be passing other people later rather than being passed, because it had such a different effect on my mentality. Now in life, I wouldn't say we need to compete necessarily or feel like we're surpassing everyone. That's more of our culture's encouragement to compare everything. So it's not so much about that, but it's more about this. When you're following your own pace, when you're in your own pace, the one that works well for you. And sometimes that takes some figuring out too, like what is the right pace for you? The hare and the tortoise, Dan says. Yes, exactly. If you go out too hard, you're most likely gonna blow up. Trying to relate this to life in a little better way than I'm doing. But so it makes me think of, so I was an 800 runner. I found that I was doing that pretty early on. At 5K, I could kind of get away with it and hang on. It wasn't the best way to do it. It didn't work as well as when I paced myself better. But really when I was racing marathons, I had to learn to hold back sooner. Otherwise, man, you could really lose the race for yourself in the first mile. But you could really win it for yourself in the last mile. So the best marathon race I had to date so far was one where I really consciously held back at the start. I had a great friend who's a great coach who helped me kind of rethink my goals for that race. I backed my time goal off for that marathon, and which meant I backed my pace per mile off a good bit, like 5 to 10 seconds per mile. And, it was scary. I was like, everyone's going to be, leaving me. I'm going to be falling behind. I don't know if this is going to work. So a lot of fears came up, and I saw everyone go. I was kind of by myself, mostly in no man's land. But the greatest thing happened. I just stayed consistent. And I was able to keep staying consistent that whole way through, which on its own, of its own merit, led to my passing people who maybe had gone out a little faster than they were able to sustain. So it was at the time a way for me to, the comparison helped me kind of see the difference. I suppose it made me feel better about myself. So there was a little boost in energy knowing, oh my gosh, this is working. And then I was other people aside, I was able to pick up the pace in the last 10K, the last 6 miles, that I wouldn't have been able to do if I'd spent that energy in the first 6 miles, in the first 10K. So pacing myself really paid off later. And other races where I didn't do that well and I got caught up in the energy and I was afraid I'd fall behind and I wanted to, I got a little too excited too early, it didn't pay off as well. So it really does pay off to pace yourself. And so when it comes to life, don't you think that it is a little like that in a lot of ways? I mean, whatever, maybe it's something you are training for, maybe it's something you're wanting to change or habit you want to change, or something you're growing into, or you're a business owner, or you're learning something new, or you want to stick with some new habits, whatever it is. There's so many things, right? Or maybe it's how you're handling your family or relationships, or the stressors that are going on in our nation and in the world, whatever that looks like for you. That pacing can really help. And then he says, yes, there are rewards to being patient. And patient. I'm so glad you brought that up, because it is about patience, right? It is about patience. It is about slowing down a little bit, maybe just a little more than you thought, and taking a moment, taking a breath. Boy, that could be during a race. That could be during a day that feels really stressful. That in itself is the benefit of pacing yourself, coming back to yourself. I know I say this a lot, but it's always worth reminding. I need the reminders a lot too. Coming back to yourself. When it comes to my patience and the healing process and improving, healing an injury or improving the mechanics of the body, coming back to what's helping you and not getting lost in continuing on with what's hurting you can be very important. So I know a lot of people, myself included, I went through this process many a time leading up to my profession. We get impatient. We are afraid of losing what we've gained so far. There are a lot of things that get in the way of our being able to pace ourselves, our belief systems, our competitiveness, our, striving to improve or better ourselves. But that patience, that pacing, that ability to come back, slow down, and be with yourself, run from within yourself, live from within yourself, and not get too pulled outward and not get too swayed by everything that's outside of you. That's what will allow you, one, to sustain yourself long-term in body, in mind, and in heart, and will also, I lost my train of thought. It was feeling so profound too. So it will sustain you long-term. And also help you stay in alignment with your own self. So to be able to follow your inner guidance, your inner wisdom, what your heart really wants you to be doing in your life. To make those decisions so that you are by alignment with your life, with you, rather than it being about the outer world or what you're supposed to do or what you're meant to do. It's really about you and who you are and what you bring to the table and what you bring to this world. So without pacing, without slowing down a little bit, without keeping a more sustainable momentum, it's really hard to do that. We get pulled more quickly. We can get pulled off the beam, as my friend says, so less centered, more like off the beam. We have to get back on. So just pace yourself here and there at the start of this year as you think towards the ongoing year or week or month or whatever it is, or the things that you're starting in this new year, or maybe not starting, or just continuing or growing into, whatever that might be. Allow yourself to be well paced for you. And that really is personal, because it's hard sometimes to know what that pace needs to be for you, for ourselves, right? It's easy to compare and to look to others and to base, even I did that, right? It's easier to do that with racing or with other things and key ourselves off of other people. And it's a little bit harder to just know and be grounded in your own knowing for what you need in your day, in your life, what that pace looks like for you. And more often than not, I want to say, well, I guess I'll qualify it to you for those of us who are highly motivated achiever type of people like me. Not everyone is, and that's totally fine. But for those of us who are used to doing things fast and going and doing and achieving all that stuff, slowing down can be the best thing, so that you're not going in the direction that's not really right for you or for the wrong reasons. And again, there's a whole spectrum to that, right? But I would highly suggest that going a little bit slower will help you reach the finish line you're looking for, not only in the best shape, in the best condition, with the most energy to be the most powerful, efficient you that you can, but to be able to keep going past that finish line into the next, into the next, into the next, Or if there is maybe there is no finish line. And it's just a matter of your growth internally, your sense of character and who you are, and your alignment with your own life and who you are and what you're bringing to the world. So my invitation to you for this week, as I like to do, is to see what that feels like for you. What pace do you need to find? What pace works well for you? What pace doesn't work well for you? And how much are you keying off of other people and their paces? Because that might not be what works best for you, one way or the other, however that looks. There might be a lot of shoulds about, oh, I need to be doing this faster. I need to get there sooner. You know, our culture really supports that, really encourages us to go, 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 go faster and go harder. And if it's not fast enough, then you're not good enough. And you are good enough just as you are, with the pace that you need, the one that sustains you, the one that allows you to bring forth your best qualities, your best self. And they may look different at different times. But as this is the start of the year and we're beyond perhaps that excitement and the level of energy that happens at those holidays and the start, just know that you're pacing yourself and that it's not going to have that maybe as much enthusiasm throughout the whole time of it, as much excitement. And those other things are going to come in and take you off course or kick you in the, shin, whatever that looks like. Spike you in the foot. That's what makes me think of cross country for my runners out there. Those things I'm thinking of, all the things in the world, in your life, in the world, in the news, all those things. And those are real things. And those are real kicks to your shin. And we, deal with them again by acknowledging them, pacing ourselves, doing the best we can with that. But, see what pace you need. See what pace would be best for you to set this year, whether it's the year itself or any endeavors you're pursuing in general, or the healing process, or even activity level. When it comes to exercise, and those of us who love exercise, sometimes we need to pace ourselves there too, especially if we have something that's hurting us. So it's not, then we really need to pace ourselves. And this is what I see in the clinic all the time too. I mean, we want to get back out there and get back there sooner and do the things we love. And I totally get that and understand that. And it's such a challenging place to be, but pacing yourself there too, and just knowing you're taking the steps to get there, to get back to what you love to do, is what you need to do right now. And you will learn and grow in that process as well. So know that those challenging times bring a lot of benefit to them too. So don't forget to pace yourself. Don't get too far ahead of yourself when you're in a process of growth and transformation or healing or learning or, being a better and better person. That's all part of it, right? It is the journey. It is that winding path. It is that yellow brick road. And you want to pace yourself on that. It pays off. It really pays off to pace yourself in running, in anything, and in life. So let me know your thoughts and comments on that. Please let me know what comes up and what comes to mind during the week. I'd love to hear, or even tonight, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter. And let me know you're here and watching by sending me some likes and hearts if you're watching the replay especially, or right now, so I know you're here and watching. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Don't forget to take good care of yourself. Don't forget to take some moments to ground and feel your feet, and be patient and be kind to yourself and others, even with a lot going on. The more kindness you can turn toward yourself, the easier it will be to do so toward others. I think there's a reciprocality there too, so same the other direction, but give that a try. As hokey as it might sound sometimes, I've become more and more hokey over the years. I was very sciencey and very serious, and you know what? I just don't think that it's worth it. So you are worth it as far as slowing down a touch or pacing yourself and, giving yourself a little bit of lightness. All right, so take care. Be in touch if you have any questions, especially when it comes to health and injury and wellness or physiology. I love that too. And I wish you a beautiful week, and I will see you next Monday for another episode of Supersoul Boulder right here. Thanks for joining. I'm Dr. Lara Johnson from Yellow Brick Physical Therapy, and I wish you a beautiful week. Thank you so much for joining. Take care.